Welcome to the latest edition of the OmniTalk Spotlight Series, the series that highlights the people, the companies, and the technologies coming together to shape the future of retail. I'm your host, Chris Walton.
And I'm Ann Mazinga.
And today we have a really special treat. We interviewed today's guest about 1 month ago on LinkedIn, live in front of everyone, and the interview was so well received that we have already asked him back. But this time we're going to delve even deeper into his area of expertise. So Ann,
yes, I can't wait.
I know, right? Please join me in welcoming Bynder's Director of Global Field and Customer Marketing, Brian Kavanaugh, on to today's Spotlight Series podcast. Brian, it's great to speak with you again.
Yeah, great to be here. Great to see you, Chris and Ann. And yeah, loved the conversation last time. So it's I'm pretty excited to be back and keep it going.
Yeah, I had so many friends of mine from my creative days who listened to that podcast and were like, is this for real? Like, is this really like they could not believe that that is something that is possible. So I'm really glad that we get to have an even deeper conversation with you today, Brian. If someone missed our first conversation, would you mind just giving the audience a little bit of your background, your role, and a little bit about Bynder to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Chris said, my name is Brian Kavanaugh. I'm the Director of Global Field and Customer Marketing at Bynder. And so who is Bynder? I've been here 7 years, by the way, which has been pretty
That's a
amazing.
long time.
And it's a lifetime in a fast growing tech company.
Yeah, it is.
But it's been quite the ride thus far. And so Bynder, we're the leader in digital asset management as our sort of our DNA, our core. And we've really pioneered several, waves of digital asset management over the years, really focusing on usability, end user experience, as well as integrations, because that is core to any DAM deployment or any MarTech solution these days is integrating with your other MarTech platforms. Innovation, we just acquired an AI search company and have integrated it into our platform, which I can talk about a little bit. And just customer experience, the highest rated in terms of satisfaction and renewal rates in terms of our customer base, which is always growing. And, our vision is really to enable them to thrive with their content experiences, with the DAM at the center, really powering how they manage and deliver all of their, amazing brand content.
Well, and Brian, last month when we talked to you, you talked about a lot of the challenges that retailers face. I experienced them firsthand in a lot of my work on creative teams at Target most recently. Yep. But can you talk a little bit about like what those major challenges were that Bynder is kind of helping with, and then any that have emerged since we last had you on the show?
Sure. So a central challenge when it comes to digital assets for retailers is rarely, if ever, is a retailer have a simple go-to-market approach. It's always complex, meaning there very, very rarely is any retailer selling one product via one avenue, such as like online, direct to consumer, right?
Right.
It's always complex. And the bigger you go, the more complex it becomes, such as a Target, like you mentioned, or a Walmart or a Home Depot. Also, IT isn't always tuned in to some of the challenges around digital assets. The main one is that the brand doesn't show up consistently on everywhere the brand shows up. It doesn't show up the same way. Oftentimes, it's not just a team, it's a dozen or more teams globally, excuse me, that are responsible for this. IT is not so tuned into this challenge of brand consistency, of content operations being streamlined. So what you get is kind of like a bunch of little content silos, more or less operating in their own way without a system of record, which is what we call a digital asset management platform, right? And that is really a central challenge that we see. Right. And then when brands go to solve it, they've got some challenges just around their legacy systems that have been in place maybe for a long time, or can they really unify the brand globally? We've seen a lot of our customers in retail make a huge paradigm shift from being a regional product-oriented organization to a global brand-oriented organization.
Right.
And so if you can make that shift, that is then a huge competitive advantage in terms of economies of scale, efficiency, but also a unified brand message wherever the brand shows up anywhere in the world. So that is really the vision, is moving to more of that global brand-oriented organization that a lot of retailers are picking up these days.
Brian, I want to go back to that point you made, because that's something that didn't really come through when we first had you on. I want to talk to you. I want to make sure we double click into it too, which is the part about, the IT team's not really knowing this is a problem. The analogy I would use, and you'll understand this because this literally just happened to me. It's almost like the slow drip from the faucet that you just don't know is happening until all of a sudden, boom, you've got this massive leak that just suddenly overwhelms the entire, drywall of your house. And that's the analogy you're talking about here, right? Because all these people are going through using Excel spreadsheets or God knows whatever tools to manage their assets. And the IT team doesn't have visibility to that. That's what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. We had one customer in retail say that they knew the lack of a global intuitive dam was a real challenge. And they sort of socialized that challenge, but it wasn't really met with acceptance because, as she put it, she was like, yeah, the executives and the IT teams saw that mostly work gets done and no one's quitting their jobs. So it doesn't really seem to be an issue over there, when in reality, the costs going into people mostly getting work done and not quitting their jobs was so many hours, so many, unnecessary costs on content creation, a lot of duplicate work, and real dilution of the brand over time. And so once I think leadership and IT saw it framed up that way, they were a lot quicker to action. But you're right, Chris. It's this challenge that doesn't always even surface cross-functionally or in a way that is automatically tangible. It kind of has to be made tangible by good internal storytelling and kind of building the case to improve.
Well, and Brian, we just had somebody on our Fast Five podcast a couple of weeks ago who was talking about, as you're talking about, like once these companies start expanding beyond just the US borders and getting into global trade, we talked about Temu and Shein and really trying to get that cross-border audience. I mean, it's only going to get more complicated, right? In terms of the it was once just a region of the country, but now we're talking at a global scale and expanding and probably needing more assets, I would imagine.
100%. And I would say any challenges you have exacerbate. And it's also a question of, and one thing that was fun last time we talked was if you're a global brand going to market in, let's say, 100+ countries, are you doing one global photo shoot or are you doing like a dozen? And like realistically, you could probably pull off one global photo shoot that then does 90% of all the work in providing creative building blocks, style guides, templates, core assets. And then all the local teams, whether they're internal or agencies, can kind of take it the last mile, if you will, and adapt to regionally to markets. And we've seen customers where before they have that global system of record, they are doing a dozen photo shoots, which are not cheap and are mostly shooting the same stuff. And it's a lot of duplicative work. And then they're able to take those costs down, in an order of magnitude, 8-fold, 10-fold, and then reapply it to how they go to market in all of these local countries, and in a much more strategic, thoughtful way. So I think that is really impactful when you've got that, hub and spoke model, as opposed to just a bunch of regional groups kind of operating in parallel.
Yeah. The idea you got me thinking about is like, it's not a problem until it's a problem. That's gonna be my catchphrase from this, right? But all right, so let's keep moving here a little bit. So I want to put you on the spot now, Brian, and to let the audience in on a little secret too. We're recording this the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It's first thing in the morning, so Brian's putting the hard work in here too, everyone. So to that point that we're about to get into the throes of holiday. And so I want to use Black Friday and Cyber Monday as the reference point here. Walk us through how better digital asset management can help drive ROI and efficiency during high revenue retail periods like what the industry is about to go in and experience over this next week particularly.
Sure. So, and I'm going to the mall later actually to exchange an item. So I'm going to see firsthand the chaos of.
You're going to go into the blinds den, Brian.
Better you than me, my friend. Better you than me.
Everyone's got that price point in their head of like, should I even bother returning this? But this one kind of just falls above that. Anyway, to your question, Chris, there's a couple considerations. One, I would say agility and scalability. And so anytime there's a huge retail push, such as Black Friday and Cyber Monday, it will only exacerbate or you'll feel the challenges more acutely. But also, if you've got any kind of competitive advantage or differentiators, you're cashing in on those more. And so one example would be if
Great
you're
point.
promotion based on products. Let's say we have customers that do a lot of their business via email promotions, right? Special codes and email to their loyal sort of customer base is a predominant channel. They might sell out midway through the day of whatever product they originally featured. And if you are agile with your content management and delivery, realistically, you can swap out what product is being featured on the, you're on the West Coast right now, Chris, like maybe there's an afternoon West Coast push and it's a totally different product that isn't sold out, which means you're going to generate more sales because the image matches the offer and your DAM is connected to your marketing automation as well as your commerce layer. Whereas without doing that and more of the traditional way of working, it's just everyone's getting the same email and then they're going to click through. It's going to see that they're sold out in their size or their preferred color. And that's just lost out revenue simply because you couldn't be agile enough to sort of swap out your imagery and your offer midday is one kind of clear example.
Yeah, and Brian too, like, and what you're describing, the old retail merchant in me is like, oh yeah, it sounds great, but like, how do you actually do it? The new capabilities around AI make what you're talking about very feasible, do they not?
Yeah, I would say in a couple ways. We just acquired an AI search company, which I actually think the first area that it truly becomes a game changer for a retail brand using it is in the planning stage because it automatically can find any duplicates as well as recognize text in an image, such as like if there's a picture of a product or a billboard, it will pick up the text and some other, it's called, and then you got similar search. So basically, if you're planning your retail campaign or your Black Friday campaign, you'll already know, oh, we only have to go create 60% of what we thought we had to, because we actually have a lot of this at the ready that we can adapt. So think of like the costs that's going into it. And really like that's a core value of an enterprise and global DAM is creating exceptional content efficiently. Because of course, exceptional content can be created, but oftentimes without that system of record and without that efficiency, it's just a huge cost with external agencies and bespoke final assets type thing. So that's really where I see more of it coming in. Okay. And then the other would be just quickly adapting. So there's this vision, Chris, and I haven't seen it actualized yet, but we're not far off of it, where we actually have had some customers say, hey, like if we sell out of the blue sneaker, let's say, and we haven't really shot so much of the white sneaker, couldn't AI in one fell swoop just swap out all of our lifestyle campaigns to then show the model wearing the white sneaker? Right. And that's pretty powerful. It has all sorts of implications around, well, what's the inventory of that white sneaker? And is the SKU number and all the other product details now porting over now that you've just changed your whole set of images, right? So it's like that's going to be an interesting thing to orchestrate, but I don't think the technology is that far off, because think about it, a graphic designer can do all of that, but it might take a week, as opposed to just saying, hey, swap everything out in this entire catalog of campaign imagery. That's really fascinating. Then you get into can you create new content, digital assets on the fly as well? That's the extension of that point, in addition to just using AI to match it in real time. Wow. Yep. And so, I think Firefly by Adobe and their suite of products is going to be super impactful and, is going to have a real make its mark on the market next year. And to your point, the management of all of that content is extremely important, because the teams that are managing the content and especially picking it up to then distribute it to a customer facing channel, you need to know if that was enhanced at all by AI for any number of considerations, right? And so that's where it's almost like the need for the global system of record that really has governance and compliance, which are kind of like boring terms, becomes even more important when you're, what we call the content chaos could get a little more chaotic, because now AI is only feeding, the sort of the volume and variety of content being created.
But I mean, Brian, I think you still bring up a good point, though, is, that time that was spent by a designer or any resources really on your team, changing those assets manually is now just kind of shifting to focus on, getting served up. Here's an option to, if the blue sneaker sold out, here's the option with the white sneaker. What tweaks do I need to make it brand appropriate? And then being able to push it out, which, I mean, it sounds like it's making the process more efficient overall. It's just kind of changing responsibilities. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. The adoption of AI capabilities, with our platform and with others that we've heard, and we did some surveys of customers as well as marketers just broadly in the market. The number one way in which it's being picked up is to remove repetitive, tedious, tasks, low lift. Because there's so many of those in the creative process, as you all both know, right? We also did a study where we put 3 brand concepts in front of a user group to survey. One was completely generated by AI, one was completely generated by a human, one was a little bit combination where AI kind of started it and then our team finished it. And what was voted on as the most compelling of those 3 brand concepts, literally an image with a tagline and a product name, was the combination, right? The generated AI one was not necessarily seen as being any more, beneficial or advantageous. Anyway, that is really and what we see.
Yeah.
I saw a billboard in Manhattan where I live right outside of, and it was for an AI driven company, and I loved it. It said, AI will take your job, but then under it in small letters it said, to the next level. And so that was kind of a cool way of seeing how I believe any creative or brand professional is going to benefit from AI capabilities, is really redirecting their time towards strategic work and getting rid of those tedious, repetitive tasks.
Well, and Brian, let's go a little bit into kind of what we expect to see from retailers who are managing their digital assets efficiently. Like we've just been talking about, what kind of impacts are they seeing by doing something like that?
The first area I would look at would be engagement metrics, specifically on what they're tracking for click-through rates, page visits, new visitors, time on site. So more of like your digital metrics that are then indicators of how well you're, pulling the customer or creating a customer experience that leads to a purchase. Because we've had customers say, oh, it's only by using a global DAM that we even feel like we have enough volume and variety of assets to go to market effectively across, let's say, a handful of markets, but also a handful of segments, right? The married couple that, cares about these things, the college student that cares about these things. So the segmentation and then the volume and variety of assets to match those segments becomes really important. And then what they've got is proof of it in those performance metrics, like I said, because you've actually got 5 different landing pages or 5 different emails or any number, you know what I mean? So if you're fitting the image to the persona to the offer, that really is the formula. And that is where we hear of these metrics improving. And by the way, the cost can stay the same because you're not paying an agency 5 times as much to create 5 times the variety for your different segments. It's all being uploaded, managed, and then adapted in the DAM. And so that is kind of the central value prop, is keeping the costs involved the same, but then achieving some sort of return downstream on, the signals you get from your customers. Is this content working?
Yeah. And is it just matching the image to the offer then? Like, is that the real crux of it?
That is my favorite piece right now, but it's by no means the entire piece.
Okay.
So that is more like, the thing I love about that is when you say match the image to the offer,
right?
We're in like offer craze right now, right? Like we said, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it's like you'll never see a greater volume or higher proportion of deals you can capitalize on. And there's actually an Adobe Analytics survey that says that Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales are projected to be up from last year, which is great. And I think anyone, it should be excited about that, retailers most of all, but also that the proportion or the amount of promotions and discounts is also going to be up proportionally over last year, meaning retailers are going more all in on discounting their products, and that's cool because they're trying to drive volume of sales. But I know, and I'm confident, every retailer wishes they didn't have to discount so much. They wish that they could generate more full price sales for obvious reasons, because there's greater margin, right? And what we've had our customers articulate to us when we ask, hey, so what's behind this whole new brand, restaging? What's behind this new identity piece of all of your content that you're creating? And they say, well, there's a corporate initiative to generate more full price sales, and building brand identity with compelling content is the best way to do that. And so, if you think about it, like the luxury brands of the world, they don't really discount,
No.
Taylor Swift doesn't discount, she has
Right.
the opposite problem. She's running out of inventory of all of her merchandise and all of that. And so why? Because there's a loyal brand following that's been built up over time, and there's some sort of amazing customer experience, And so that really is the other piece of it is, yes, retailers, if they're smart with their image, matching their image to offer, that's interesting. But what's even more interesting, and what's even a bigger position of strength, is you're the hot item for the season. And, you don't have to put out all these offers across all these channels. Your website's just getting, a million hits. And it's almost like you have to worry about, do you have the inventory to match that demand? That's the best problem to be in. So.
And that's what gets the IT teams interested, because they're seeing the impact on sales, right? It gets them more interested in the problem. And great, by the way, Taylor Swift drop, you just increased the amount of listens by this, like hopefully 500 fold, Brian.
Yeah.
Very, very deftly done. Very impressed.
Well, I got an email the other day, which must mean that Spotify knows I'm a decently solid Taylor Swift listener. Early access to purchase a hoodie with her official Eras tour, embroidery and all of that. I didn't convert, but I thought it was interesting, and I was glad that they gave me the offer. But that's the whole thing, right? You don't need to have any discount on that stuff. That's going to fly off the shelf.
Man, snap that up. It sounds like
I know. Put that on resale.
Item. Yeah, man. Oh my God. Oh man, nice return on investment there. But
yeah.
All right, I want to put you back on the spot though, because again, going back to my time, particularly in e-commerce, the PIM system was always a problem. Like, it was just the system nobody loved. And I have to think that there's some integration points here that we haven't talked about in terms of how a DAM functions with the PIM system. So can you, for the audience maybe that doesn't know, explain what the PIM is, and then also what you do to ameliorate the integration and make it as easy as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So PIM, product information management system, it's been around for a while. I think there's some really exciting innovations happening now with, cloud native solutions that are best in breed, integrate with other platforms, like you said, Chris. And so the PIM really handles, per the name, all the product information, what goes onto the product detail page, the SKU number, the specs, down to even, what goes into a product, polyester, is it cotton, and so on, so forth.
Yeah. Massive amounts of data.
Massive amounts of data that need to make their way to a number of places. And a great example is, like, a lot of times that data needs to transport to anywhere that product's being sold, which for most manufacturers of brands is a lot of other places other than even their .com website, right?
Right.
So getting it from the manufacturer of the brand, let's say Nike, to the endpoint retailer, which could be Dick's Sporting Goods or Target, the PIM plays a huge role in syndicating, as they say, all that product information. But it's not designed for visual imagery and the product imagery that is crucial to the whole experience of e-commerce and seeing a product. That's where the DAM really comes in. And the way that they play together is what we call two-way integration, meaning the product imagery lives in the PIM, and then it gets syndicated out to wherever that product detail page is put through. And again, oftentimes it's some other retailer or brand, right? But conversely, the SKU number, as well as other product metadata and detail, right? Like, products have a hierarchy: men's, and then it's sweaters, and then it's what kind of sweater, right? Solid versus patterned, and so on. all of that hierarchy transports back into the DAM. So your DAM is a reflection of your product lines in many ways. And so that's really the interplay. And the amazing thing we've seen with DAM and PIMS working together is if you have an updated image, let's say you don't like the coloring or the way something was shot and you want to swap out 15 images or even, more than that, you can auto update the version in the DAM. And as soon as you hit refresh in your PIM and also on whatever websites it appears on, it'll be updated automatically. Whereas usually that used to be a web content manager doing a ton of manual work just to update that one image and all the number of places where it shows up.
So I want to put that's a great example because it got me thinking. So for example, like, again, going back to our Target days, and you remember this, like Target's famous for this, rebranding all of their private label brands. And so you're essentially saying, like, once they do that, they can just now hit a button and all of the updates for taking Market Pantry to Good and Gather, an example, can just happen versus needing somebody to go in and manually create all those new images that need to go online wherever they need to go.
Yep. Link-based image delivery is going to become the standard. Most retailers are embracing it already, and if they're not, they will. And what that means is like the uploading of an image to the point where a customer might see it is going by the wayside. It has to be link-based where it lives somewhere centrally, the DAM, and then updating it as well as delivering it in its optimized format for device and pixel and all that just happens on the fly. And you don't have to have 15 different versions for web, mobile, high res and all of that. That part is figured out, and that's really exciting.
Well, and Brian, am I true in making the correct in making the assumption that this could also start to happen within social platforms where these images are being used, and advertising platforms and retail media networks where these images are being used? Are they able to just use that one link now and it kind of can resize or reformat to what each of those requirements are across all of the media buy?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. That's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
I'm in shock a little bit. I mean, if there's something that our listeners want to understand as a real sense of what the possible is with this, I mean, that's one and done. That saves such a tremendous amount of time, resources, teams within entire organizations.
And gobsmacked, Brian. You gobsmacked Dan here on Wednesday morning. It's great.
It can be really powerful. And that's like the example I started with of if you've got an email promotion and you run out midday, can you swap out everything quickly? The answer is only yes if the image only really lives in one place and it's link-based, because then all you're doing is deleting one link, copying another one in, and it renders it, you know what I mean? Like delivers the image automatically. The uploading and downloading. Yeah. I believe that's going to feel awfully archaic in the next, 1 to 2 years.
Oh,
and it should.
So many people are breathing deep sighs of relief. So Brian, what else you got for me? I mean, now I just have other expectations here. What other like solutions are there that we can talk about here, especially, as it includes DAM integrations and other challenges that retailers are facing as they're trying to get so quickly into getting that right product in front of the right person at the right time?
Sure. So I believe that within retailers, sometimes a forgotten channel is your sort of retail partners and your sales associates. So for example, we were talking about PIM, and a lot of organizations defaulted to storing their product imagery in their PIM because at the end of the day, you kind of can. It's not hard to have a library within a solution, right? But that's only your product imagery that's getting sold online. What about social, like you mentioned next? Well, the social teams can't go into the PIM. They likely don't even have logins, let alone know how to use it to then grab something from the PIM and then put it on Instagram. Hey, buy this product or, whatever.
Right.
And then what about more of the offline touch points that are just as crucial, right? There's a data point that more than half of in-store customers this year, and this is from Salesforce, and we can give the link, are going to engage with a piece of content once they set foot in the store. Usually that's the retail associate showing something on a mobile device or a tablet, right? Even if it's at the point of maybe helping checkout. And so that's where DAM as a true system of record just comes in, because we have some retail customers where they've got entire collections and brand guidelines and retail kits just so the in-store associates can get up to speed on messaging effectively and positioning the product, bringing up that imagery quickly, because you're not going to run that out of the PIM. The PIM's geared for online, product detail pages and sales. So that's where it becomes powerful. And then, oh, by the way, if your product goes viral and your PR director says, oh, I need that one picture of that thing now, they can grab it in a way that, you couldn't in the old days. So,
and they can search it now, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, they can text search with the new AI company that you acquired, right? So that's
absolutely
a simpler method for them.
Then at some point, in the not so distant future, it will be voice search and it will just be conceptual search. You can just type in fun and the system will know all the images associated with the concept of fun, and then you can go from there. So that's really interesting to me, is that whole idea of all the other groups in an organization that are sort of sometimes forgotten about or maybe not as supported, that the DAM can really help. And I think another area that I really love and am passionate about is just user-generated content. I think is super interesting, and there's a whole workflow there of managing it effectively, because even if someone gets Starbucks had a great campaign last year with teenagers just had to be on TikTok with their new Starbucks reusable mug or whatever,
right?
But how do you possibly get consent that you can use that image or TikTok clip, and then make sure that the rights form is associated with the images, and then your social team downstream can use it effectively, but only for so long, because that usage rights tend to expire, is like a whole other area where that DAM experts are really diving into, what we call usage rights and governance, which again aren't the sexiest terms, but are absolutely crucial for a brand going to market effectively.
Wow, we might just have to have you on to talk about that. Man, that sounds like a whole nother topic we could dive into. But man, Brian, this was great, and
yeah,
I know you love this too, because I whenever you go gobsmacked in the middle of an interview, you're hitting on something. So it's always kind of my litmus test for everything. So yeah, great job, Brian. So I'm curious too, if people want to get in touch with you, reach out to Bynder, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, first of all, I would say on LinkedIn, I've been connecting with some OmniTalk listeners after the first one. So, find me on LinkedIn.
Imagine.
Yeah, I loved connecting. So please, reach out. And then if it's more having to do with some of the capabilities we discussed, or even just wanting to know more about Bynder as a company, I would say go to bynder.com, BYNDER.com. And so, that would be the best way to just learn about us, I would say, and our vision for the market.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Brian. Yeah, that wraps us up. Thanks to Brian Kavanaugh for sitting down with us today. And as always, on behalf of all of us here at OmniTalk, be careful out there.